We are dealing with a pretty interesting thing here in the United States, a complete and total lack of trust amongst Gen Z, which are groups of people born between 1997 and 2001, in pretty much every institution. That includes news, Congress, the president, Supreme Court. It's a pretty interesting thing that we're dealing with. Joining us now on the program to talk a little bit more about that is Jim Talerico. Jim, good morning to you. Hope all is well. Explain what's going on here. It's some pretty concerning numbers.
Yeah. So when we're talking about Gen Z, we're talking about people who were born between 1997 and 2012, which would make them 11 to 26 years old. And so in terms of the political environment, all they know is political polarization, corruption scandals, and it's not only the Gen Zs who are concerned about trust in government, it's everybody. But they also have some economic concerns that they don't feel the government is adequately addressing. And that's the high level of debt they have, unaffordable housing, and the competitive job market. In addition to that, they were frustrated by the pandemic response. And again, in that particular age group, they couldn't go to school, couldn't see their friends, that kind of thing. And last, they share, I think, everybody's concerns just about technology and privacy in terms of digital surveillance and data privacy and that kind of thing.
Jim, I fall right at the beginning of that Gen Z group here in 1997. And do you think social media plays a big part of this? I mean, you can scroll through Instagram or Facebook Reels or TikTok, and you can see things that, wow, this is shocking, turning out that they're deep fakes or altered videos. I would imagine that adds to some of this distrust because there's so many different things that are being purported and promoted that are actually completely fake and false.
Yeah, and that problem is only going to get worse. But in addition to that, it's that the fake news thing. 2/3 of people detest when there's not truth in the news that's being reported.
I'm not surprised to hear the number, but it's unfortunate, Jim. You flip on the television or visit various news outlets and websites, and that is pretty prominent. You can pick your litany of whatever outlets you want to read, and there's definitely a lot of truth that is being maybe misconstrued or just completely ignored when you're reading news. I mean, the fact that people don't trust what they're reading or trust what they're seeing should be an eyebrow raiser for everybody. I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum.
You're right. I was in an event last night, and I was speaking to someone who was the head of the journalism department, and we talked about that problem. He said it's a tough one to solve. The encouraging news is that 83% of people think that we can work together and work out our problems. It's just a tough environment we're in. But with respect to Gen Z, there are some possible solutions I'd like to talk about.
Sure.
So first of all, of course, it's addressing the government issues with respect to accountability, making sure that there's more information and better transparency. As far as their economic concerns, helping with respect to job skills training and that, and making housing more affordable as well as their college loan situation. So I'm not saying forgive it, but, for example, you can stretch out the terms of the loan, for example. I think getting people involved, having them talk together, in town halls and forums, I think that's very important. In addition to that, communicating with them digitally, because that's the way they like to communicate. They also have their socially progressive issues that they think are important. So it's talking through those. I think there's valid arguments on both sides, but when you get people together and talking, I think that's the first step of bringing people closer together.
Jim Talerico is our guest here this morning. One of the things that I see in my age range and younger here, Jim, is just a general lack of interest, a lack of involvement in things going on. We're approaching municipal elections here in the next month, and A lot of folks in that age range are just completely checked out on the issues. How do we start getting these people involved in pretty important local civic decisions? You know, they're planning boards, people that are making zoning decisions at a local level. What do we do to grab those people in and encourage them? Hey, this is not Congress we're talking about. These are people that live in your community, people that live in your neighborhood that are running for public office. How do we begin to break the wall on that?
So I'm a baby boomer, and when we went to school, we had civics training. So I think that's the first step. We need to bring that back into the school systems. We need to teach them about the process. The other thing I think is interesting is when people have a lack of focus, it may be because they just don't think that they're being listened to.
Sure.
So again, we proactive. We need to bring them into the system, into the process, encourage them to run for office. And again, those town halls I think would be very important.
It's a pretty interesting dynamic. You've got obviously your traditional news outlets that are providing information, your traditional news websites that are providing that information. But then you've got a lot of these, I guess I'll call them like shadow news sites, Jim, that are essentially just kind of reposting or regurgitating a lot of this stuff that are very popular on social media platforms like Facebook and X and TikTok. Are people even reading those things, and are they getting accurate information?
In all cases, they're not getting accurate information, and I think, in particular, Gen Zs do rely on that information, that source, for their information. So, we need digital reform as well. There's a lot of work we need to do. Ethical behavior is getting worse in society, not better, and it's not here in the U.S. It's all over, not just here in the U.S.
Yeah, there's no question about it that social media is leading a large part of that. Jim Talerico is our guest here this morning. Jim, folks that want to follow you over on social media, you've got a pretty active X account. How do they do that?
Yeah, so I go by James J. Talerico Jr. Believe it or not, there's a million Jim Talericos. So you can find me. I have 30,000 LinkedIn followers. I'm on all the social media. And my company is Greater Prairie Business Consulting, so you can go to greaterprairiebusinessconsulting.com. I've actually written a book on ethics that won 3 awards, and it's focused on helping small businesses implement systems to improve their ethics.
Wow, I think everybody could agree to that this morning. Jim Talerico, our guest. Jim, thanks so much for the time. Greatly appreciated. Looking forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Jim Talerico, our guest here this morning.